Add a little excitement to your sports watching experience by betting all the action on FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, where you get unique, fun bet types like same-game parlays so you can get a massive payout on a small bet. And don't forget exclusive promotions such as enhanced odds boosts. Right now, FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back if you don't win your first bet. There's no strings attached. Just place any bet you want. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you'll get your entire bet up to $1,000 back in site credit. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and get started. And use my promo code Hennig when you sign up to get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig on FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older and present in NJ or PA. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.findle.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. WENJ, WENJ-HD, Millville, Atlantic City, 97.3 ESPN. This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here, live at the Matt Blatt Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN. A 1-hour edition of Sports Bash Saturday. That means it is a power hour edition of the show. Glad to have you on board with me. Hope you're all being safe. I know it's here in South Jersey. It's a little wet. It's a little dreary. But hey, we got a busy sports day for you here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Flyers at 1 p.m. College basketball, Florida State, North Carolina at 4 p.m. Big ACC matchup for them. Sixers at Cavs at 7 p.m. tonight. We get covered all over the place here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Right here this hour, we got you not one but two guests to get you ready for the busy weekend. Flyers with back-to-back games. At 12:40, we will be joined by Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, to get you ready for the back-to-backer between the Flyers and the Buffalo Sabres up in Buffalo. Before that, we will be joined by Jason Blevins. He is still down in Florida. He's actually at Phillies spring training. He will join us coming up at 12:15 to get more into the Sixers, a little touch on the Phillies as well. As always, your text messages are welcome at 609-403-0973. Yes, 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN, you can interact with the show as well while you watch us here on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of the Sixers and the Flyers, Billy Schwein brought up a point. He didn't really get too much into it on his show, but I thought it was a very good point. This time of year, when the Sixers and the Flyers are competitive, it makes things better for sports fans. And I don't think that can be overlooked because the Sixers are the top of the Eastern Conference. The Flyers are right in the thick of it in the NHL. And to me, I think that's a great thing that Billy brought up because, when you are a fan, right? When you are a sports fan, you want a reason to cheer for your team. You want a reason that brings you to the television, that brings you to the arena, the stadium. And now with the stories that are coming out that you're going to start having fans, limited capacity in Philadelphia. You're already getting them, for example, for Devils games coming up next month. You look at the situation with Phillies. There's projections that Phillies could have potentially, a quarter of the building filled up for opening day, or at least the opening series of the season at Citizens Bank Park. So as we're starting to get back to some sort of normalcy, what is bringing us back to the teams? What is bringing us back to the games? Well, it's certainly not a lousy team. For all the proponents of the process, at the end of the day, the process was more like a political situation than it was an actual productive sports situation because it generated more exasperating debate than it did actual engagement from the fans at times. Listen, when it comes to sports, you come to the game to hear about certain things. You come to the arena to see great players. You come to the games to see your team compete. You want to see your team go out there and be successful. And for the Flyers and the Sixers, you have two teams that are right in the thick of the fall, the winter season, heading into the spring, that are giving you competitive games to watch. The Sixers are fun to watch. They're way more fun to watch this year than they were last year. And frankly, in my opinion, the Sixers last year, watching them at times like pulling teeth. It was just not fun, all right? Watching Al Horford chuck up those 20-footers was not exactly aesthetically pleasing basketball to me, that's for sure. Listen, I love the fact this Sixers team is rededicating themselves to defense. I love Embiid going out there being an MVP candidate. Tobias Harris, an all-star snub. He could have been an all-star, didn't get the chance. He'll be fine. He's got a bruised knee. He'll be back after the all-star break for sure. We know that Daryl Morey doesn't sit on his hands. He actually goes out there and makes trades. So you know that this team is an organization that is going to be fun to watch, fun product, and they're going to be competitive. And realistically, when you look in the Eastern Conference, I talked to Ben Golliver about this yesterday on Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. You could argue that the only team that can go head-to-head with the 76ers is the Nets at this point, because the Bucks look like they're still a piece away from really being something. And I think that's frustrating for them because they threw a lot of things to get Drew Holiday to Milwaukee. They gave up a lot of assets, and it feels like Drew Holiday, all he's done is improve one aspect of the team. The rest of the team still feels like it's lacking something. When you watch the Miami Heat, they've had a lot of issues this year. They've had COVID issues. They've had injury issues. They just are not all together. Now, they might figure it out before they get to the postseason, but they are not just one piece away either. They need some significant shuffling of that roster, because I think the roster as constructed last year, it's a year older, which means Iguodala is a year older. You lost Jay Crowder. The Miami Heat are not the same team that went to the NBA Finals last year. Also in the Eastern Conference, I think Boston has been underwhelming this year. While Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been excellent this year, I think outside of those two, I think Danny Ainge has done a poor job at building that roster, in my personal opinion. I think that the whole Tristan Thompson, Teague experiment, and now you're depending on Peyton Pritchard to go out there and be productive from night to night. I just don't believe outside of Boston's two guys that they can really be great, because Kemba Walker, does he ever stay healthy anymore? And it's a shame, because I love Kemba Walker at UConn. Clutch Kemba was incredible. He was so much fun to watch. But if you're hoping Kemba stays healthy, you might be hoping for a lot at this point. So to me, you look around the Eastern Conference, I have to agree with Ben Golliver, what he told me last night. There's one team for the Sixers to go blow for blow with, and that's the Nets. And I think that's what makes the Sixers such a fun team to watch. They're bringing you to the television. They're bringing you to the game because they're a fun, entertaining watch. That's a credit to Joe's maturity. That's a credit to Doc Rivers' coaching. That's a credit to the great coaching staff that he brought in. It's a credit to Daryl Morey for building that roster to complement the star players. And then on the flip side, on the ice, the Flyers are fun to watch because despite the fact that it's been a rocky year with the COVID stuff and different things going on, listen, Carter Hart is still a franchise caliber goaltender. Claude Giroux came back from the COVID list, had a great game. You know that you have young stars like Konechny and guys like Ivan Provorov. I mean, JVR, what the heck happened there? I mean, that guy's become a monster out there. So the Flyers are bringing you in. And now with fans being allowed in attendance at some point next month, I'm not going to sit here and, be like some people are giving you a deadline or a date or anything. Listen, there's got to be fans at some point. The world is going to slowly get back to normal. It's nice to see that the two teams in the winter, the Sixers and the Flyers, are giving you something to root for. And that's always a fun thing to get on board with. Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Show being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. We'll head down to Florida. Coming up next, Jason Blevins. I see him backstage right now here on our video stream. He is all queued up, down at spring training. We'll get some Sixers and Phillies with him coming up next. And then we'll get into the Flyers with Kevin Durso at 12:40 today as we lead you up the Flyers versus Buffalo at 1 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Yes, you can listen to all Flyers games right there on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show at 97.3 ESPN on all the social media platforms.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Durso steps by him and scores it up and good. What a move. Are you kidding me?
The Sixers host the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tonight, coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
On someone else excludes Corvette with GMF financing. Excludes prior sales. See dealer for details.
It's President's Day all month long at Bennett Chevrolet with our biggest, boldest, best deals ever. Saving you up to 25% off MSRP on brand new vehicles. Right now, Bennett Chevy is selling brand new vehicles at GM supplier employee pricing. Plus, you keep all the rebates that can save you as much as 25% off MSRP. But there's even more ways to save with 0% financing available. Plus, if you're looking for pre-owned, Bennett will pay you a minimum $7,000 for your trade towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum $7,000 for your trade, no matter its condition. Imagine how much more you'll get for a good trade. And once you've dealt with our non-commissioned sales team, you'll rave about the wonderful experience with no need to negotiate and no hassles, because our team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. It's President's Day all this month at Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Dorothy Roofing. Call 1-877-97-KEVIN.
Hi, I'm Kevin Daly, the owner of Dorothy Gale Roofing. Do you have a leak? Do you need a new roof? Give us a call today for honest, wholehearted advice at 1-877-97-KEVIN.
Wizard quality comes with DorothyRoofing.com.
Okay, set it down over there and then go to Bay 5.
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business
We
thin.
need to keep going to finish.
Like Amir's warehouse. To expand capacity, he needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction, now is the time to take action and get professional help. Call Recovery Centers of America at 1-888-RECOVERY today. You are worthy of recovery from your addiction, and calling RCA will be your first step in getting the help you need. Recovery Centers of America answers the phone and admits patients 24/7. And because safety is a top priority, all patients and staff are routinely tested for COVID-19. RCA's expert team of physicians and medical professionals will treat you with compassion and dignity and provide an evidence-based treatment plan that is custom-tailored to your specific needs. Recovery Centers of America at Devon and Lighthouse are local and in-network with insurance providers, so their best-in-class inpatient and outpatient care, offered both in-person and via teletherapy, is affordable and accessible. Make this the year you conquer your addiction. Call today, 1-888-RECOVERY. That's 1-888-RECOVERY.
Nya, nya, nya. Ba, ba, Babue, Zimbabwe. The broken Bunsen burner burns so bright. Southeast Asian Peninsula.
Hey, Jamie?
Yes?
I think the only line we need from you today is drivers who switch to Progressive could save big.
Cool. I just got to finish my warm-ups. Foul, throw in the towel. History.
Switch to Progressive today.
Santa ski slalom in a salmon skin suit.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Switch to T-Mobile for Business and get up to 90 days of service free via virtual rebate on your business plan. You get a great deal, the largest 5G network, and first-class benefits like Microsoft 365 on us. It's better for business and only with T-Mobile for Business. Limited time offer. Stop in-store for details. Plus taxes and fees for some plans. Virtual Express MasterCard within 8 weeks of receipt of valid submission. Complete port within 60 days. See T-Mobile.com for 5G devices, coverage, and plan details.
Hi there. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service here.
Want to save some money filing your taxes? File your taxes with Jackson Hewitt now and pay $50 less than you paid someone else last year. That's right. Pay $50 less than last year. Have your taxes done by a skilled Jackson Hewitt tax pro and get the biggest refund possible. Guaranteed. It's win-win-win. Get more, pay less, but act now. The offer won't last. Get your coupon code and offer details at jacksonhewitt.com. That's Jackson Hewitt.
The average 30-second radio ad has about 75 words of salesy messaging. Nobody's got time for that many salesy words. Let's do ourselves a favor and see if we can keep it under 10. Okay, count it out. Acura, President's Day, event. Going on now. Attractive offers. One word to spare. Look at that. Acura. Less talk, more drive.
For attractive offers on the entire Acura lineup, visit your Delaware Valley Acura dealer today.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, a 1-hour edition of the show only today. Joining us right now, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline, it is Jason Blevins, still live in Florida, is where he is at. Of course, he was down there for the double dip with the Raptors and the Sixers, and now he's over there at spring training. Jason Blevins' appearance here is being brought to you by Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro, South Jersey's premier sports rehabilitation and physical therapy center, treating the pros and the Joes. Visit them online at trifectatherapeutics.com. Jay, looks like you have a much nicer weather day there than rainy South Jersey today.
That might be true, but I'm not paying attention to your weather, so it's pretty nice. Not gonna lie. It's not only is it nice just to have warm weather, but it's very nice weather for Florida. So it's like 80 degrees, but no humidity. So it's almost like I'm in LA. So even I'm not complaining about it.
I wouldn't complain either. So
I'll complain about most things. I was doing a lot of complaining in Tampa the other night.
Yeah, well, true. So before we get over to specifically the Philly stuff, I want to touch on a couple Sixers things. Sure. Obviously, since the last time you and I talked, Ben Simmons named to the All-Star team. So it's going to be Ben and Joel. I think it's interesting that, it seems like the consensus around the league is something that you touched on, which is, coaches view these players differently than maybe, let's say, the fans do. And I think it's something important to keep in mind, because I think so many times the fans don't value defense. They don't value, being a leader on court. They don't value hustle plays as much as they do just three-point shooting and scoring points.
Yeah, it's true. But I will also say coaches don't value defense as much as coaches tell you they value defense. At the end of the day, a great move offensively is unguardable. So people with great footwork that can get to their spots are unguardable at the NBA level. So every coach talks about defense. They need their guys to play defense. Otherwise, the next tier of player down can get hot and burn you. But yeah, I think we talked right before that announcement, right? I think last time, the other day. And it sounds like we talked to Doc right after, and he said that the coaches he talked to said it was a no-brainer. Of course he's an all-star.
So then what's the next move for the Sixers? Now that we know where they are at the All-Star break, they're getting one of the best teams, if not the best team, the Eastern Conference, depending on which person you asked. Obviously, there's a lot of talk out there about Lowry. There's talk about PJ Tucker. There's talk about, you, Hudrick, and McCormick wrote that article with 9 guys listed in that article. So there's a lot of names roaming around out there. What is your latest feel on that front? Because in my opinion, I think that no matter what, Morey's going to make a deal. He's not an idle guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think and we talked about it the other day, for them to be competitive in the buyout market, I think they have to do a consolidation trade and free up minutes to offer to guys that are going to get bought out. I was listening to the Lakers Portland game last night watching it, and they even talked about how active the Nets are going to be in that buyout market and how competitive that's going to be because the Nets have so many roles to fill and such a great chance at a championship. So I think the Sixers just are primed for packaging 3 players, and most likely, 3 or 4 that are young, partly matching salary, partly youth, to make a big move. Now, is it Lowry? That's everyone is talking about Lowry, but I have. You probably don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm not exactly sure if the things that make Kyle Lowry special in the NBA are the things that the Sixers need. So people say they need another ball handler, and he is that. But I think what really makes him special and separates him from other point guards are his ability to defend down low, be a load, and to take other point guards down low in post up. And I just think the Sixers have plenty of guys that can take guys into the woodshed. So I'm not as convinced that he's the piece as maybe a lot of other people are. I would look at Lonzo Ball. Actually, he is going to hit restricted free agency. He only makes $11 million. It's really easy to make the money work. I don't think he's a long-term player in New Orleans, and he's fixed a lot of the concerns that you had about him. So $11 million is really easy to make work contract-wise. So he's, from a logical standpoint, I think he fits their offense. He shoots a lot from the corners. He can be that secondary point guard. So he's one that I think if they don't get a Levine and they don't decide Lowry is the guy, that's a name that I would think they've made some calls on.
Jason Blevins joining us here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. He is live down there also covering the Phillies today down in Clearwater. We'll get to the Phillies in just a moment. Now, you mentioned Lonzo Ball. I find that name interesting. I want to tell that real quick because I remember I think it was almost 2 months ago, that started the speculation that New Orleans wasn't really interested in him. They wanted to move on. They were trying to see, and there was rumors Chicago might be interested, which obviously fizzled out. But to me, Lonzo Ball is an interesting guy because, like you said, some of the problems people had about him when he came out of college have been fixed. I think he's a much more mature player now than he was when he was during his time in LA. My only question with him is, if you bring him in here, how does he play defense on a team that has really been playing great defense compared to a New Orleans team that, for lack of a better term, they basically are like paper tigers?
Yeah, but I don't view Lonzo Ball. I've seen him a lot in person. I don't view him as a bad defensive player. I really don't. I think he's a very smart player. For me, the whole thing keeping Lonzo Ball from being a really, really impact player in the NBA were 2 things. His footwork was just terrible, setting up his jump shot, and his foot. I have video of warm-ups where his feet are never in the same spot twice, and then his cross-face sort of shooting mechanics. And I think he has just worked through a lot of those things. But I think Lonzo is a pretty good defender. I think he's obviously very good in transition, obviously a very good passer. He has a lot of the traits as a lead guard of a Ben Simmons. So that and I'm just a believer in consistency over a 48-minute span when your style doesn't dramatically change. When your starters go off the bench, your backups can play easier with other players when you're not completely changing your style of play. And right now, the Sixers bench plays a completely different style of play just because they don't have a Ben Simmons. They don't have a Joel Embiid. off the bench. So you're going to much smaller guards. Lonzo's a pretty big guard. He's 6'6", as a point guard. So I don't know. To me, it works on a lot of levels. He can knock down corner threes when he's in the game with the starters. He can run in transition with those guys as a running mate, and then he can run similar things that Ben Simmons does when Ben is on the bench.
Also, you could argue that all the teams that have won championships in the last decade plus have all had multiple ball handlers on their team. So one could argue that the more ball handlers you have on the Sixers, the better it puts them in a position to be successful in the postseason, because you look back at all the teams that were contenders, they all had multiple guys who could handle the ball in clutch moments.
Yeah, I think you need them. And then you need guys that can turn turnovers into easy offense on the other floor. So transition guys, transition offense is less important in the playoffs because tends to be a slower game, but it's, you need those easy buckets.
Jason Blevins live down at Clearwater. Let's flip over to the Phillies here, because you got the Clearwater scene right behind you if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN. First of all, great job by you to get the nice little angle there. I think you and Durso are the two guys who have perfected the backdrop so far doing the streaming here. Durso always gets the angle of the ice and the scoreboard behind him in the hockey press box, and you got the field perfectly behind you. So very, very nice videography work going on there.
Appreciate that. I put some thought into it. I could have just sat up in the press box, but you'd have just seen a white wall behind me, so that would have been no fun.
Right. Well, I see the guy mowing the lawn behind you. He's out there driving around. Also, I saw your video on Twitter. Didi Gregorius, Joe Girardi chatting it up. Good to see Didi finally get his visa situation figured out, because to me, he was a big part of the resetting, and everyone was so focused on JT. But I would argue that Didi was just as important to bring back, because he was one of their best, if not the best, clutch hitter with runners on base last year.
Yeah, and I didn't know I was breaking news. That was the first time he had hit camp. I didn't know that. It tells you that I'm a Sixers guy mostly. I'm a basketball guy mostly. But yeah, so I agree. I think that was very important. Now there's the whole, definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. This team has mostly run it back from last season, with the exception of some changes in the bullpen, and we'll see how that goes. But no, I think he is a valuable player. He and JT, super valuable, and those are extremely valuable positions on the field to make sure you have locked up. So that's very good news.
Now, the other thing is, you put out that poll on your Twitter account about the wins and losses, and we got Dan from EHT on the text board. He chimed in. He says, I'm really excited about Philly's season, says Dan EHT, but I'm not sure if the wins are there. The other teams in the NL East are really strong. I think that's a very interesting point, because Bryce Harper was the one who said this week that he thinks the NL East is the best in baseball of all the divisions.
Yeah, it might be the most balanced, right? Consistently good. I'm not sure there's a World Series contender in the division, but I think top to bottom, it's going to be the most competitive for the division title for sure.
When you think about this Phillies team, because you mentioned about the win totals on your Twitter, Dan Nietzsche's worrying about the wins. What do you think is a reasonable expectation for this team? Because a lot of people would say, well, look, last year you could throw it out the window because of the COVID situation. Other people might say, hey, they didn't have enough pitching last year. The bullpen was an abomination. So, where do you fall on what the legitimate expectations should be for the Phillies this year?
To me, quite frankly, this just screams a 500 ball club to me. So I know hope springs eternal at this time of year, but I don't see a lot of data points that would say you're going to get an extremely different result. You have, and that's no critique on any of the individuals involved. I'm just, from an organizational standpoint, there isn't this groundswell of, four guys in the minors who are pressing for playing time. You kind of already have those guys, and you're hoping you can get a full season of production out of some of these guys who are the younger guys, quite frankly, have been inconsistent. So you're banking on a lot of things to go right for you to be a good team. And when that is true, you're probably a 500 team.
Are you one of these people who, and I say this partially tongue in cheek, so don't shoot the messenger. Are you one of these people who looks at Dave Dombrowski and says, well, the Phillies finally have a baseball guy, and now they have a baseball guy. They can go out there and actually be a contending team. Do you put any value into that, or are you a little bit more, let's wait and see approach?
I listened to a Sloan Analytics podcast this week with the GM of the Dodgers. And I found it to be really fascinating how they think about data. He also came from the Tampa Bay Rays organization, and how they invest their money, because the Rays certainly didn't have the resources of a major market. They had to be really tactical with how they spent money. And I don't see that sort of tactical approach being applied to this organization. I don't see the investment in the farm system. I know I'm in one of the farm stadiums right now, and it's very nice, but it's not about the building. It's about, I'm not seeing those long-term investments that will pay off over time. So having a baseball guy, is he given the checkbook to make those deep investments in Central America, South America, in the Caribbean, in their scouting department, in their analytics department? Are those investments there? I mean, I did some digging on this over the last month or so. I do that about once a year, and I just don't see the evidence for that. So what that tells me is you spent the big money on the star players, and top end talent really does matter a lot in hockey, in basketball, when you have 5 players on the field. When you have a 25-man active roster, you can only do so much with having all your money put in a few guys. You have to have 11 pitchers that can all do different things and make hitters change eye level and change the way that their weight distribution is front to back. Keep them off balance with both speed and eye level. And I just don't see that. I don't see where this team has invested in those things. So, sorry if it's loud. They're loading up some stuff, but they heard what I said and they're very upset.
Jason Blevins live on location in Clearwater.
I've been yanked off.
By the way, one of our viewers on watching on 97.3 on Facebook is Hunter Brody. He says he's listening to us while ripping up the carpet in his basement. So I'm glad
hopefully I'm motivating him to get more animated, because Brody, I think, is a little too settled and calm. He needs to be more excited about things.
Yeah, well, the thing is, people don't know is Broge loves baseball. It's like his little secret that he doesn't tell a lot of people about. Like, you find out if you get to know him. He loves baseball, even though he's a hockey guy and all that kind of stuff. And he loves the Sixers and the Eagles, but he secretly loves baseball. So that's the real reason why he's listening. He doesn't care.
I love baseball too. I just love the game of baseball. I really love watching a game, watching how that duel between a pitcher and a hitter. I love the dynamics of how a catcher manages a game. I love all the little details. I played baseball all my life, so the game of baseball I love. So What I maybe don't do is get caught up in the names and the soap opera aspect of it, because I think it's a different type of sport. We shouldn't really talk about it that way.
Now, you said you played baseball. What was your position? What was your main position you played?
I was starting center field all through high school, and I played after high school. I had I'm not going to talk about my baseball career. Not on the air. But no, I played a lot of baseball.
Coming to a podcast near you.
Yeah, I could talk the game. Anybody that wants to go to a game with me, you'll get all kinds of 3 hours of detailed pitch by pitch sort of talk. I love it. I do love this.
I'm fine with that. Book me in. Just make sure I have a drink on hand. That's all I need, you know.
Yeah, to listen to me for 3 hours, you're going to need more than one.
No. You need the drink too, because you're going to be talking to me for 3 hours. So it's a 2-way street. Okay.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah. Cause see, with baseball, here was my thing. They started me in the outfield, but they realized my depth perception was garbage.
Yeah.
So I became a catcher.
So, okay. Yeah. I mean, cause definitely getting to you at some point. I played until I was 26, and we had a league, which is basically post college hardball, very competitive, highly competitive league for adults. And at 26, my eyes went, and I had 20/20 vision before that, and my batting average dropped 100 points in 1 year, and there was just no point. There's no point in playing anymore. It's one of the things, going back to that podcast with the GM of the Dodgers, you know, those vision tests they do, that stuff they'll never share with us, right? But it's something they really do. And it goes way beyond just like the eye chart at the eye doctor that you and I would get. They do some really deep stuff to make sure that, because the margins of error are so thin at the plate, you have to recognize that pitch. The more you can see the spin, the more you can see, you know, rotation and arm angle, all kinds of things that you can pick up will give you a minor advantage or a huge disadvantage. And that's stuff that's really hard to report on if you're a beat reporter. You're not going to have access to that data. So we're going to sit there and yell at a guy for, you know, having a down year, but you know, for all we know, it could be something as simple as just eyesight, and it's a fascinating little thing when you bring up eyesight and baseball, because it's so important.
Yeah, the hardest thing in doing any sport, in my opinion, is hitting a baseball, and I should know, because the only reason why I made it to junior college baseball was because I could run and I could throw. I couldn't hit for squat unless I was lucky. So when I say hitting is the hardest thing, I know from personal experience. He's Jason Blevins here on 97.3 ESPN, live down in Clearwater. Follow him on Twitter at jblevins for all your Sixers, NBA, and Phillies coverage all weekend long down in Clearwater. Phillies back on the field tomorrow. Sixers back on the court tonight. You hear the Sixers at 7 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. Jason, I always appreciate you jumping on the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Josh. See you soon.
Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. We'll make the transition to the ice coming up next. Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, joins me next to preview Flyers Sabres right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, where you listen to Flyers hockey there. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. And of course, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey later today on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action. The Flyers are in Buffalo to face the Sabres later today. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN, and listen live on the free mobile app.
It's a new year and an all-new Matt Blatt Nissan. Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Help us celebrate when you get out of that old car, truck, or SUV and into a brand new Nissan. 2020 Nissan Kicks. $4,000 off MSRP on in-stock units or get 0% APR financing for 60 months on new in-stock Nissan Kicks, Sentra, or Altima models. Plus, Matt Blatt Nissan has fast-track checkout available online at mattblattnissan.com. Our non-touch delivery and electronic paperwork ensures your safety comes first. We want to help with your credit approval today so you can drive a new Nissan with 0% APR financing. Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township or online at mattblattnissan.com. Unapproved credit. Negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. All factory rebates and incentives to dealer. 0% APR financing based on 1516 for 1,000 borrowed. Offers can't be combined. Call 888-731-5030 for all the details. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Gary is refinancing his home, so he shopped around for the lowest rate and found it at Amerisave.com, setting him up for a lifetime of savings. It's one decision he'll never regret, unlike taking that gig in the testing lab at the deodorant company.
Raise your arm, please. Oh, man, I hate this job.
Pretty regrettable, Gary, unlike finding that low mortgage rate at Amerisave.com that's got you on your way to a lifetime of savings. Amerisave's rates won't be this low forever, so go to Amerisave.com now. Lower mortgage rates mean higher savings. Call 866-514-SAVE or visit Amerisave.com/licensing for cost information, terms, and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all states except New York. NMLS number 1168.
Hey, sports bettors, it's Mike Gill, and I wanted to share with you how I've been cashing in on the PropSwap Sports Bets resale app. On average, sellers on PropSwap have been making $500 a month. It's easy. Just post all your betting tickets for sale on PropSwap and let them find you a buyer. Listing your ticket is always free, and if it sells, great. But if not, the bet is still yours to keep. If you're not selling sports bets on PropSwap, you're missing out on incredible side hustle. Start making extra money today by downloading the PropSwap app and selling your sports bets.
This is Renee.
Happy to be here.
She's not some influencer. She's more of a groundbreaker, turning her 4-acre lot into a little slice of heaven behind the wheel of a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Renee runs with us because the most important job is the next one.
That's all I got.
Nothing runs like a Deere. Get a 1 Series tractor for just $99 per month at your John Deere dealer today. For additional cost information, please call toll-free 855-633-2315.
Dorothy Roofing. Call 1-877-97-KEVIN.
Hi, I'm Kevin Daly, the owner of Dorothy Gale Roofing. Do you have a leak? Do you need a new roof? Give us a call today for honest, wholehearted advice at 1-877-97-KEVIN.
Wizard quality comes with DorothyRoofing.com.
Nya nya nya. Ba. Ba. Babue. Zimbabwe. The broken Bunsen burner burns so bright. Southeast Asian Peninsula.
Hey, Jamie?
Yes?
I think the only line we need from you today is drivers who switch to progressive could save big.
Cool. I just got to finish my warm-ups. Foul, throw in the towel. History.
Switch to Progressive today.
Santa ski slalom in a salmon skin suit.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Hey, Matthew, we need to restock those sleeping bags.
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
Won't you cover this register?
Like at Anita's outdoor store. To keep sales climbing, she needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Kendall Auto Plaza offers the area's best car and truck buying experience with 60 years of customer satisfaction and community service. What's on their 100-acre lot? A huge inventory of Ford, Lincoln, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, and over 100 quality and certified pre-owned vehicles. Whether you use your car, truck, or SUV for work or play, discover why Kendall customers are so loyal. Kendall Auto Plaza, exit 10 of the Parkway on Stone Harbor Boulevard, or shop from home at KendallAutoplaza.com.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. We have Flyers hockey coming up next. Of course, our Flyers conversation with Kevin Durso joining us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter stream is being brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. your local provider who makes it easy to upgrade your home to the most energy-efficient equipment on the market. Plus, learn how you can get a free furnace during the month of March only with Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning here on 97.3 ESPN. As promised, Kevin Durso joins us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing well, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. First of all, let's look ahead to this Flyer situation, not specifically the game, but situation. Big win the other night. Claude Giroux came up huge in that game. Brian Elliott had a really good game. Where do the Flyers stand now coming off of that game moving forward? Because we know that, the situation with the COVID list, we have speculation out there about what the line's going to look like. I know you and Bros talked about open ice hits, about the whole Nolan Patrick playing at the wing instead of at the center. So what is, in your opinion, is the state of the Flyers coming into this 2-game set with Buffalo?
Well, it's a lot better than it looked 3 days ago when they played against the Rangers on Wednesday night. As it stood Wednesday night, we knew that Claude Giroux was coming back, and we knew that Justin Braun was off the COVID list but wasn't able to play in that game because of no practice time. So we figured Justin Braun was probably going to be available for this game, and he is. He's in the lineup. Bit of a surprise in this one. Phil Myers is the healthy scratch today, actually, on the defensive side, and that, I think, has a lot to do with his performance in the last game. He wasn't at his best. I think he really kind of did a poor job of taking away the crease and the space near the net in that situation. You saw how Chris Kreider had such a dominant game and scored the hat trick by being right around the net, and that's the area where I think the Flyers wanted to clean up. So that's probably why, Alain Vigneault kind of hinted yesterday that there's going to be guys who are in and out of the lineup. They're going to play 6 times in the next 9 nights. So you're going to see some lineup flexibility here. So I wouldn't think that this is a long-term thing for Myers. I think it's just a way to keep somebody fresh for Sunday, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But forward, they're really going to get back to some of the normal things when it comes to their lineup, because not only was Jake Voracek back at practice on Friday and had skated on Thursday leading in, but they also had Scott Lawton back and they had Oscar Lindblom back, and all 3 figure to play in this game on the same line. So that's good news. That gets you 3 guys back in the lineup who you're used to having. The only guy that's left on the COVID list is Travis Konechny, and you'll be probably without him for the duration of the weekend. But you figure that next week he'll probably be back as well. And, I told you earlier in the week when I was on Wednesday before the game, I didn't think Lindblom was going to be back as early as the other 2, just because, his health over the last year possibly warranted more practice time than just a day. But these guys came back, had 1 full practice, and they seem ready to go. And I think maybe they're going to take the lead of Claude Giroux here and see a guy who came back motivated and waited a long time to get back on the ice and looked at it and said, I had 1 practice and a morning skate and I want to get going. And I think the other guys are doing the same. I wasn't surprised that Voracek was doing that. AV kind of said that there was no symptoms with him, despite probably a positive test, we can assume. So if that's the case, he's just been sitting around for 2 weeks kind of waiting to get back out there. But the other guys, you didn't know what exactly their situation was. So now that we know that they're going to be back, it gives you a full lineup that I think you can actually look at and say this is closer to full strength. I mean, Konechny's still in absence, but it's close to full strength again. And I think it's interesting that they're putting all 3 of those guys on the same line and not trying to shuffle too much around. I think Alain Vigneault is really happy with that top line, that JVR, Couturier, Farabee line. They continue to look good. And I think when you got what you got from Claude Giroux in that last game, and Nolan Patrick played a decent game on the wing, I think it was kind of a mixed bag for him. He was still positionally sound. He did a lot of good things. He just kind of had some tough luck when it came to the puck hopping over his stick or something like that. And Kevin Hayes, again, with a goal in that game as well. So you want to keep those lines intact. So they are, and they're going to just throw the other 3 guys in on the same line. Kind of makes it easy to manage their minutes, too. If you feel like they're a little tired, or if you don't want to overwork them, you can kind of factor that whole line out of the picture and still lean on those top 2 lines. So a lot of things looking right for the Flyers as they get ready to take on not only this weekend series, but this 5-game road trip that's going to go into next weekend.
Yeah, and statistically, that is the top line, you could argue, because you have Van Riemsdyk and Farabee. They're the team leaders in goals right now. JVR with 9, Farabee with 8. I have somebody watching on Facebook right now on 973 ESPN screaming Farabee. Scott watching us on Facebook, just all caps, Farabee. Listen, I think that you brought up this point before that, Farabee has really kind of come into his own. He's kind of settled in as a guy who there were expectations for him. He was not a guy who, people were like, who is this guy? No, there were legitimate expectations for this guy. And for him to come in and start having this game, like that breakaway that he had, he didn't score the goal, but that breakaway he had, he came out of the box, he just grabbed the puck and ran down the ice. Like that showed you a level of, like, you're looking at it, be like, that's the kind of guy that for years Flyer fans wanted on this team. That guy who just has that breakaway speed and can go in there and threaten the goaltender. And that's something you have in this guy right now.
Yeah, he was at the very beginning of the season when I was on Sports Bash with Mike and Broads. It was that he was my pick for breakout player of the year on this team. I think he's the guy who is due to have that breakout season, and he's lived up to that completely so far this year. And more than just the breakaway there and the speed that he shows and the ability to go in and score goals in different ways. I mean, he's had that ability already, and he's shown that. I was thoroughly impressed with the pass he made on the Van Riemsdyk goal. That's just great vision. That's great awareness. Yes, it's a power play situation, but when the back door is open like that and you can throw that pass across the zone like that, you got a guy who knows how to score by going to the net, then find him, and that's what they've been doing. And, I kind of figured at this point, based on the way that line was playing for the 3 games that they didn't have a full lineup or close to the full lineup, it's going to be hard to break that trio up when they're playing this well and producing at the rate that they are. You can figure out the other 6 guys as they come off the COVID list, as Drew came off, as Voracek, Lindblom, and Lawton come off, and when Konechny comes off. You can figure that out and put them in any combination in the middle 6 that you want at that point in time. I think this right now has to be your top line because it's the line that's producing the most. It's the line that's doing all of the things right. I mean, Van Riemsdyk looks like a different player this year too. He just completely looks like a different player in terms of he's skating faster than I can remember. He's going to the net like he used to. He's getting the luck too. He's getting some of those things to work out for him like he didn't a year ago. But Farabee's been a big part of that because Farabee's got the vision to set him up. He's got the playmaking skill. He's an incredibly smart player. And we knew that coming out of his draft year. When he was on the board or when he was going to be going in that draft and the Flyers were sitting there at 14 and a lot of projections were that was where he was going to go, it just seemed like a perfect match for this team, that this was the type of guy that all those years that Ron Hextall had drafted the center who's going to be a good two-way guy or a defenseman who's going to fit into the right slot for them. They needed to grab a winger who had the scoring touch and had the playmaking ability, and that seemed like a perfect fit, and he fell right into their lap at that spot, and they didn't miss on him, I think. I think he's just going to be a guy who's around and a part of this team for years to come.
Kevin Durso joining us here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers, Sabres coming up at the top of the hour. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates on the call on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app where you can listen to the game as well. Big news for this game today, for me at least, is Jack Eichel. I looked at this stat earlier. Jack Eichel has 8 goals and 6 assists in 14 games versus the Flyers. So how big is it for Buffalo to come into this game without an impact guy like that? I know he's not having a great year this year, but a guy who eats like that against the Flyers, that's got to be a little bit of sensory relief for the Flyers' mediocre defense right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think back to a game last season. It might have been in December or something like that. The Flyers played the Sabres, and it was very late that they announced that Eichel wasn't going to play in that game either. And the Flyers went out later that night and put up 3 in the first period and won the game 6-1. And it clearly showed the impact that Eichel has on that team when he's on the ice versus when he's not. So that's a huge loss for them. I think another thing to keep an eye on with this team, and Jeff Skinner's coming back into the lineup, and he's been out of the line for a little bit, so he might be a little bit more motivated, and he's always been a good player against the Flyers too. But they're getting guys back in the lineup. I think of Erasmus Ristolainen in this case. He's been out of the lineup for about a month now because of his placement on the COVID list a month ago. And the Sabres are still kind of working their way out of that situation as well. They're going to play Carter Hutton in goal again because Linus Ullmark got hurt in the last game, so he's probably out for the weekend. The fact that Eichel's out today probably doesn't bode too well for tomorrow either. So imagine trying to play this series now, this weekend set that you've got. They're missing their top player and their captain. They're missing probably the guy that they lean on as their number one goalie. Who knows what they're going to do? They're either going to probably lean on Hutton for 2 games in a row, or they're going to go to a guy like Jonas Johansson, who hasn't played all that much. So you might have to go that direction, and it creates a bit of a mismatch at times. It could be a mismatch situation there. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they've played 2 games against this team, and you've seen the best and the worst from the Sabres. You've seen what happens when they fire on all cylinders. They get all the luck in the world, and they're able to just dominate you in a game. And you've seen what happens when they don't seem to get that, and when they face somebody, when Brian Elliott was excellent the last time he faced this team, got a shutout, when that's going too, you see what you can do to this team, and you can put them down. And this is a team that, since they've come back from their own COVID situation, unlike the Flyers, who have gotten a game to overtime, have won a game, they're 1-1-1 so far in the 3 games back from their situation, Buffalo's lost 5 of 7. So they're still trying to find their way, and it's a team that's probably not on the same level as the Flyers, and you have to take advantage of that now, because you're going to play a team that might be closer to your level over the next week. You're going to play a lot of games against teams that are probably on your level or right up there with you, and that are going to be valuable points in the standings. So these are 4 valuable points this weekend to just establish your place among these, against these other teams like this, against the Buffaloes, the Rangers, teams like that. So the fact that Eichel's not playing makes it a more interesting matchup, and I think that it puts it even more in favor of the Flyers.
Also, when your backup goaltender is Jonas Johansson, the guy who sounds like the Novak Djokovic would beat in the second round of the Wimbledon. I say that because Broads is listening to us while ripping up the carpet in his basement right now. So that's a little for you, Broads, out there. By the way, Hunter Brody, Kevin Durso, co-host of the Open Ice Hits podcast. I hope I say the name right. I do subscribe to it. Open Ice Hits podcast. Great hockey podcast. Follow Kevin Durso on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. Check out his pre and post game reviews of every Flyers game over at 97.3 ESPN.com. And as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And Kevin, as I told Blevins, you and Blevins have the best backdrops, whether you're at your house or at the game. So I appreciate what you do for the people watching at 97.3 ESPN on the social media platforms.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that.
Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Sports Bash Saturday being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Add a little excitement to your sports watching experience by betting on all the action at FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and now you can get more winnings with FanDuel, letting you place a first risk-free bet up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game, and FanDuel will refund you back up to $1,000 back if you don't win your first bet when you sign up with my promo code Hennig. That's Hennig. When you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook, must be 21 or to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Actually, speaking of FanDuel picks, before we get out of here, I usually give you a UFC pick. The main event, Rosenstrike Gale, the fight will not go the distance. So if you take that fight, that it will end in TKO or knockout, combined it with Rivera's fight, Rivera Munoz, that it'll go the distance. That's a over 226 odds value on FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Josh Hennig. Flyers hockey next.
Health update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
Want to increase your memory, focus, and concentration? Learn a second language.